Do you think electric cars will last longer than gas cars?
Yes. And there are Model S's out there that are 10 or 12 years old with 500,000 miles. The car is now becoming a computer. For electric cars, that's even more pronounced. We're building a telehealth platform for electric cars. With the 1010 announcement, I do think that Tesla is going to take that to the next level.
What is that exponential into the billions trend that is compounding at hundreds % per year? We think it's like hardware robot devices in the wild. In this Star Wars future, you see Amber being as relevant and ever, more relevant than ever. It's kind of like your SOS for your spaceships. Welcome to the HyperChange podcast. What you're about to watch is a conversation with Amber CEO and founder Joe Pack. Amber is a company I found about a month or two ago at the X takeover, and kind of being this new player in the EV space that is offering like really good customer service and a way to fix your vehicle. And I think that's just hugely needed. So jam with the company. I'm an advisor to them, which basically means I'm an angel investor with my time in them because I think it's such a cool concept. So I wanted to host Joe on the channel, take y'all behind the scenes on this really cool company. Joe's a super busy guy and he's got a ton of other stuff to do. So it's a real treat to be able to sit down with him for an hour and get an inside scoop from someone on the front lines of the EV industry. You know, what's happening with service, how long do these cars really last, what's going to happen with ride sharing. We get into all of that. So hope you enjoyed the long form conversation. Let me know your detailed feedback and comments below. Hit up Joe with questions and ideas. And yeah, hope you enjoy. Thanks. When we were thinking about how to kick this off, talk about EVs are happening, autonomy is happening, crazy time for the auto industry. And then our podcast engineer was talking about her EV experience and how she had a Nissan Leaf and it couldn't go like 200 miles that she needed to go. And part of it was because the battery wasn't working. We're like, wow, this is such a funny segment of what we're working on because it was like the heart of that EV of the Nissan Leaf. The battery wasn't working. And that's what they were trying to make it do this marathon. And because its heart wasn't good, it couldn't perform. And that's Amber's building this technology to basically analyze EVs and really all robots. And kind of get under the hood to see what's happening with them and inform customers of that. So I thought it was a really cool lead in. And then you started telling us the really cool fun fact, which I'll let you take it away, of like why the Nissan Leaf battery, for instance, in the early days kind of degraded so much quicker than the Tesla battery.
Yeah, absolutely. So these batteries, they really don't like to be too hot or too cold. In particular, they don't want to be too hot. And the funniest thing is that Nissan, it could be for the reasons to actually cut costs, right, and getting these cars out, making them more affordable and approachable to customers. They decided that they didn't want to invest in a really robust thermal management system, which if you're a Tesla owner or any other EV owner out there, your car has built-in thermal management to make sure that it's in a good range. So that's why these batteries start to fail. The interesting thing is that there are some shops and operators out there that have realized this, and they have been sourcing aftermarket batteries for these Nissan Leafs and started to fix them because the batteries are dying more so than your early Model S, X. The S's came out in 2012, right? So we have at least 10 or 12 years of data on those now.
And it's interesting because it's such a new category of vehicle, the electric vehicle, and I think the question on consumers' mind and the world's mind is, do these last as long as the gas car? We put them out, and Tesla and the Nissan Leaf in many ways prove that they can work and be something that's really functional with enough range and charging to be a daily driver for many people. But then it's like, well, how long are they really going to last? Because that's where the whole cost of ownership, the whole sustainability piece all comes into question of how many miles these really go. So I think that's where I kind of want to pose to you, of someone who's being on the front lines of seeing all these electric vehicles and hearing that kind of bad story about the Nissan Leaf. Do you think electric cars will last longer than gas cars in terms of mileage? And how is that going to play out? And what are you seeing on the front lines there?
Yes. EVs are going to last longer than gas cars. The first wave of them, so the Nissan Leafs with these batteries and the thermal management systems that weren't supporting, right, the longevity of those batteries, those will not last long. But the industry as a whole, you have to remember that, while electric cars have been around for a while, they really haven't been adopted, right, so much, except for the last couple decades, really, especially with Tesla being one of the first to have mass adoption of these vehicles with the Model 3 after 2018. So the technology is getting better. And we do believe that the way that these cars are being built now, being software defined first, with sensors at every part of the vehicle, with components that are really just in its infancy, right? Like today, if you think about a Tesla Model 3 battery or Model S battery, it's all these like little Duracell batteries that you have in them. So that's the current technology. We just have Duracell batteries in these huge packs that weigh 1,000 pounds. That's going to change, right? That we're really just in the early innings. So we do believe that because there are so many more tools and technologies and systems for us to be able to understand these vehicles and fix them and diagnose them, and the parts are going to change and improve, you should see an improvement in these cars already. Although I will say, I mean, there are Model S's out there that are 10 or 12 years old with 500,000 miles on them. I mean, how many gas cars do you know that have 500,000 miles on them?
Yeah. And it's funny because I asked you the question, but I kind of already knew the answer because I've had the CEO of Tesloop way back on the channel, and he was talking about, you know, how he was operating renting out these Teslas, and they were hundreds of thousands of miles. And he was trying to shout from the rooftops of like, look, these are working hundreds of thousands of miles. Maybe I have one battery replacement, but I'm saving a ton on the other maintenance. And even factoring that in, like these are lasting way longer than anyone thought possible. And so I think more and more data is going to come out about that. And it takes time for people to get convinced, obviously, but every early indicator is saying like, wow. And that's going to make them even more sustainable than gas cars in retrospect, because they're going to have gone further in that whole calculation of sustainability. And that's actually what's so fascinating is it seems like a boring part of the industry, but when it boils down to sustainability, getting 100,000, 150,000 miles out of these vehicles is a huge needle mover in difference. And I'm kind of curious, like, so we have Tesla, like what you said, the first sort of mass market EV robot, if you will. Now let's say we have Rivian that is copying the Tesla playbook to a T in terms of making its car as much a computer as a smartphone. And that is the true under the hood paradigm of they look the same as cars, but they're so different. And I'm kind of curious if you could break that down for us. Like you said, it's a bunch of Duracell's batteries lined up. That was J.B. Straubel's big innovation. But how are these Tesla and Rivians really different from, you know, the cars we think of from kind of like this mechanical perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you've walked into any car today, even a gas car, right, you realize that these cars have so much technology now, right? It's reflected in the price tag. It's reflected in all the features that you have inside, right? There are fewer tactile buttons, which, you know, unfortunately, I'm a big tactile button fan. So that is one trend I hope that does reverse. But the point being is that the car is now becoming a computer. And for electric cars, that's even more pronounced, right? Because every part of that electric car, maybe minus the suspension and some of the more mechanical components, but your powered seats, your windows, your computer, your motor, the battery, those are all electrical components, and they all have sensors. And if we extend out, what that may look like is that it's increasingly the case that you know a lot more about these components and every single part of that car. And you can actually control a lot of them, which is where the robot piece comes in, right? That you can natively, you know, command and create different use cases for these cars because you could interact with them. And I think that's the fundamental change in where automotive is going, is this software-defined vehicle that Tesla and, to your point, Rivian has really nailed down quite well.
What your company does is build technology that sort of understands, you know, all these different touch points in the car, which are essentially spitting out so much more data than we ever thought possible. So I'm curious if maybe this is a great time for you to tell us about Amber and the technology you're developing, which when I heard about it, I was like, wow, this is such a fascinating stack of the value chain, essentially, of figuring out this computer on wheels. Let's go in and figure out like every little, you know, number and kind of sort of the health of each of these systems that you just mentioned. So I'm curious, like, how did you decide to start building that technology?
Yeah. So, you know, we're talking about software-defined vehicles. I have a little bit of a history in this. So I worked at a couple different stints in my career where I was interacting with assets that were becoming connected. In particular, I worked for a company called Samsara, where we were interacting with what I would call sort of analog fleets, right? And we were trying to make them smarter. What that means is that we would go, whether it was a big trucking fleet with hundreds of trucks on the road delivering all sorts of different things, or even school bus fleets, right? With school districts that are trying to get students from and to school. We were trying to instrument these cars with technology to be able to understand really fundamental things including what's happening with that car. Are there issues with it? Does it need to be checked in? Other things like where is the car? So there, GPS component of it, all the way up to at Samsara, we were building two-way dash cameras that could detect, harsh events on the outside, but also behavior on the inside to make sure that there were safety protocols that were being followed. So that was a really interesting place for me to spend my career because, at Amber, what we're doing is we're leveraging a lot of that same technology to be able to diagnose these vehicles, electric cars in particular, and build a aftermarket electric vehicle platform around it. So what does that mean, right? Essentially, we're building a telehealth platform for electric cars to be able to understand what's going on with your car. And then our hope is that we can also help you with more, which is maintain it, fix it, and intervene and be on your behalf, helping you make the ownership of that car seem really, really seamless and connected.
And how do you think a technology like that plays into where we're going right now? You have Waymo doing 100,000 autonomous rides, Tesla's 10/10 event, which I'm kind of curious. Maybe you could throw in your prediction for that.
Yeah.
But where do you think car ownership's going? Because you're building a company, you're saying like people should care about their battery and all that health. But I keep thinking, am I even going to own a car, or am I just going to pay for a monthly access to some sort of ride sharing service? Where's this all going, really? And especially, it's funny that EVs just came on the scene, and it feels like they're about to get disrupted again with the ownership model.
Yeah.
And so, especially with 10/10 coming around the corner. So, I'm curious how you view that change coming into the automotive industry.
Sure. I think the future is going to be mixed. And what do I mean by that? So there are going to be opportunities for autonomy in the fleet to change a lot of the way that we think of transportation, right? So I live in San Francisco. I see Waymos taking people from point A to point B, and it seems pretty seamless. I'll admit I was a little skeptical that they could get this into production, but hey, we're well into at least a couple years of this, and this is a real future for us. And with the 10/10 announcement, I do think that Tesla is going to take that to the next level. They have, I don't even know how many miles of data they have, right? They're recording all of this imagery and situational awareness around them with the millions of miles, right, that are driven by cars in their fleet, which are driven by personal and fleet use cases. So they're going to be a really interesting entrant to this autonomy space when they're talking about fleets. So I think that's where at least autonomy is going. I also think there's going to be a future where people own cars. People like cars. They want to own them. I don't think it's going to be autonomous, but there will be a future where people still own cars, but we want to make that future feel seamless, as if you're leasing the car, as if you are leasing your home or renting your home, as opposed to having to deal with all of the headache of fixing it yourself, figuring out what to do when you have a flat tire, right? We think that experience is going to feel more and more connected, even if you are still owning the car and it's not autonomous.
And maybe we can dive deeper on that. Like the
Sure.
Amber website says drive electric stress-free.
Yeah.
So that seems like a cool sort of mentality shift in how you think about owning the car.
Yeah. So again, with this idea of owning as if you were leasing, right? So when you're leasing the car, I would argue that it's sort of a honeymoon or best case for people who can afford that, right? You own this car, something happens to it, you take it to, a service center, it's usually covered for you, right? You don't have to deal with any of these expenses. And then at the end of the day, when you're done with it, you give it back, right? Or you could potentially buy out that car and take that into your own hands. In terms of where Amber wants to take electric cars, we think that's the future, which is that instead of having to anticipate, what types of repairs and what it might cost you to own the car, for a simple monthly rate, again, Apple Care for electric cars, right? Imagine if you didn't have to really worry about these surprise bills, or maybe in the future, who's even going to fix your car, right? It's all connected. We know what's happening with your car. It should be as easy as that monthly rate, and then everything being sort of done for you. So you should own with peace of mind. That's really the goal that we're shooting for at Amber.
I'm curious, like, how do you think that changes the secondary market of these Teslas? Because right now, like, a huge fear when you're, maybe purchasing a Tesla that someone has used before is, oh, is this car going to have issues? Like, maybe I'm better off leasing. So there's creating this, very high demand, leasing economy where the secondary market could be a lot more robust if there was more data and information.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, do you think there is going to be like more liquidity and a bigger marketplace for these used Teslas in the future? And how do you see Amber's role kind of in that future?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do think that right now is a very unique blip in time where you see the value of a used EV, particularly for used Tesla market, to be really low, right? And that's because, to your point, there isn't a lot of confidence in a aftermarket platform out there to actually fix and repair these cars, and people don't know like how long they're going to last, right? Again, we think that they're going to last a very long time, and that increasingly so, it will be cheaper perhaps and easier to fix and maintain than gas cars. But right now the market is sort of overcorrecting and saying, hey, that doesn't exist right now, so the value is what it is. We do expect the residual values to go up, and we think Amber is going to be a really big player in that, to be able to inspire confidence from liquidators or dealers at the end of the line, or even insurance companies, to say, hey, we shouldn't just see this as a car that is going to degrade in value continuously, but rather something that can be on the road for 10, 12, 14 years.
I'm kind of curious, what kind of things are you seeing at the front line of like the Nissan Leaf battery we talked about to start,
Sure.
the delta in like quality of these EV builds? Like, a Nissan Leaf that doesn't have the thermal management on the battery, like, seems like kind of a rookie mistake now. And like, that's like a really bad build that is going to have rapid degradation that I'm not going to want, versus the Tesla, are built really solid in a lot of use cases if you don't get a bad one. And then, I'm curious, like the Rivian, I don't know. I have no idea about that one. So I'm curious, but how big is that delta? What are you seeing under the hood of like, is every EV built, is the Rivian is built as good as a Tesla? I guess that's one way to frame it. Like, or is it more like a Nissan Leaf, you think?
Yeah. So the Rivian is a car that I would highly recommend you go buy, especially with the deals out in the market right now. The reason why is that there's this sort of concept of the bathtub curve in innovation, right? So in the beginning, you're sort of figuring out what is going on with these vehicles. You're, as an automaker like Tesla and Nissan, trying to just make it, right? You're just trying to get cars out on the lot. And a lot of the time in the early days, a lot of these Tesla cars, like, they didn't even have their own in-house parts, right? They were, picking and mixing and matching from these other manufacturers just to put something together and get it out there. So, those cars, a lot of the time, they had poor build quality. They had some issues, right? And increasingly so, we see with cars like Rivian and even the new Model 3 that just came out, rave reviews, right? The build quality is much better. They figured out how to manufacture these cars. The software is even getting better, right? So those all amount to a better product going out into market. And again, I think to your point, Aiden, that does increase residual values because these manufacturers have started to figure out how to actually build these cars and make sure that they stay on the road.
So I guess that was kind of like a politically correct answer, like, but I'm like, because I'm so curious of like, like, each new manufacturer is sort of a new product lineup from your perspective of like, Amber has to learn of like, I wouldn't want to be insuring the Nissan Leaf battery because those look like they're going to keep breaking. So you have to really understand which, are the good vehicles that are going to have that sort of end of life thing. And it's just very uncharted territory because it's like, who else, if you had to name a third auto company that's not a legacy one, that's not Tesla or Rivian, who would you say, Aiden or Joe, is number 3? Lucid's trying, but they just seem like a Saudi Arabia funding, losing money, like, Model S kind of stale product. But
yeah, I would put a good vote in, a solid vote in for Hyundai and Kia. These are companies, right, that are very, very close to electronics. And I think that's really a big theme around electric cars, right? They are in many ways more electronics than mechanical, right? So naturally then, just like in China, right, where you see personal electronics manufacturers getting to electric car industry, a lot of synergies between the high-tech electronics industry in Korea and the auto manufacturers, right? And they do inherit a lot of those benefits. So they've been dealing with, batteries for a long time. They've been dealing with low voltage electronics for a long time. So I think they're really going to be at the edge. They've got a good understanding of software as well. So I think they're going to be a great sort of like additional target for us to go after we look at these natively software-defined vehicles like Tesla and Rivian and maybe even Lucid.
Yeah, and the Hyundai and Kia, I gotta say, they look cool, and they're doing a really good value prop for the stats you're getting for the price. So it's like, honestly, that's a good one for number 3, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had thought of any.
I didn't necessarily have thoughts on that because I just haven't studied the market enough. But I do think it's interesting that like this is kind of why traditional maybe like extended warranty providers aren't well equipped to adapt to this new age of taking care of an EV, is because they're more designed for these like mechanical era, and that this is like fundamentally a different product, which is this computer on wheels with electronics, and that's why there's this kind of opportunity in the market. And now like you said before, a lot of these first EVs that were built kind of, with spare parts or like kind of cobbled together in a very interesting way. But as the quality improves, and now it's some of the longest lasting cars in the market, like how do you kind of quantify that and make sense of that? And that's where like kind of it sounds like Amber's role is in the market, is to take this product that's very high end and like track all the data on it, which is something you can do on it with a computer, but a lot harder to do with a mechanical product.
Yeah, there are lots of benefits to the different parts of our business that we're going after, right? So if we're talking about, AmberCare, which is, again, our extended warranty for electric cars, you're right. Being able to look at vehicles and assess, what the state is, being able to be on the same page as a customer if there's a claim so that there's no back and forth on whether something's broken or not, right? So instantly we'd be able to have that conversation and resolve a claim. There's no waiting on the phone, right? Wondering if someone's going to come to your house and inspect your car. These are all things of the old world, and these are all analog sort of concepts. Now, you can play that same playbook if you're an extended warranty company and just insure and protect the car. But we think that with the new asset and this new sort of wave of innovation and things should change, right? There should be a new sort of service that supports these vehicles that are very, very natively integrated into the idea of being connected. So that's where we want to take AmberCare, and that's where we want to take the rest of our platform, because we don't think that AmberCare should just be the best extended warranty or most trustworthy extended warranty out there for electric cars. We also want to help actually deliver the service as well, right? Whether that's nurturing the very quickly growing network of electric car service providers, or maybe even having some sort of wedge into that ourselves, right? Being able to deliver that service. We want that to feel connected as well, because if you're a Tesla owner, you get it, right? Mobile service, it's connected, it's your app, right? That's how people want to get service these days. They don't want to get calls or look at paper, right? Everything is digital, everything's connected, everything's intelligent.
Yeah, and it's totally like that new future, that vertical stack economy of the electrification, and just everything's kind of got to get reinvented. Like Tesla reinvented how we sell the car, how we service the car, how we charge the car, and that's created sort of this downstream effect of everything has to change. And I think that's an interesting moment for us to put on like less our EV customer hat, more like investment nerd hat of like Amber the startup, and thinking about it as like this really cool startup that you're building that's like an interesting technology play, because I feel like that's what I kept thinking about as you were talking about it, is like there's so much more data, and the analog way that we've typically worked with these warranties is kind of like almost feels like in the dark versus what Amber's doing.
Like it was kind of like a black box. Like you wouldn't know what was breaking down, and now you have lots of information about what's breaking, and it's all on your phone. Like you can get real-time insights on it, like with remote diagnosis.
Yeah.
Like,
So let me give you some examples of how this plays out more concretely. So for example, in the old world, right, with extended warranties, there was a concept that, one, there's a waiting period, right, when you sign up, which means you pay, let's say, like $4,000 to $8,000 for an extended warranty. It gets financed through a dealer, right, in the loan that you have. And then you have to wait 30 days because the warranty company is afraid that there might be an issue. Now, we don't have to have that waiting period because we look at the car. We know exactly what the state of the vehicle is. So when you sign up for AmberCare, you actually can get coverage as soon as you pay, which is sort of this wild concept in the extended warranty world. The second thing that also happens is that we can actually offer AmberCare at a monthly rate. Now, for a traditional extended warranty provider who may not have that, access to understanding and maintaining visibility into the car, that's a scary idea, right? You don't know what state the car is going to be in and how it's going to perform over time. So they usually ask for money up front, huge bill, right? It's still, of course, financed through a loan, but if you're just buying directly outside of a financing event, then you have to put up all this cash. Now, for us, you can get started on a monthly rate because we know what the state of the car is, and we're willing to be able to take on a little bit more risk because we're on the same playing field as the consumer, or maybe even one day with fleets, right? We know exactly what is going on with the car, and so we can say, yeah, why don't we just get started with something that's more accessible and affordable? So those seem like pretty simple concepts in many ways, but they're really powered by this innovation of us being able to assess and diagnose remotely every part of that car.
And it's the same pattern that we're seeing. It's like, do you think the legacy companies are going to reinvent the way they work and do it better? Or are we going to need a new company built from the ground up to service these sort of off-warranty vehicles? It almost makes sense that with this whole new, step change, you're going to want a whole new ecosystem built, and there's going to be a totally new way to do it. And so Amber is structured very differently than a traditional extended warranty company. It's like all about the software and technology. When you think of a company as developing like a core competency, like what core competency is Amber developing? Like what's the real technology that you have engineers that are working on, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything starts with data, right? Because whether it's for us to be able to make more intelligent decisions or make coverage more accessible or delivering service, right, in a more seamless manner, it really does start with us being able to really be connected to a vehicle and to be able to get insights on that car, right? Whether it's just up front or even over time as we amass more information about what that asset is like over its life cycle. So our remote diagnostics platform is a really big part of every part of what we're going to do at Amber. And so that's going to be always critical to us. And the beauty of it is that it just gets better over time, right? In the beginning, right, we are using the tools that are available to us, but these assets are just going to expand, right? So for example, we work with Tesla today and get a trove of information about the cars. Of course, it's all opt-in. Customers are going to be authorizing us access to that data, and that's always going to be the case. As these other automakers start to adjust and orient their businesses in that way, we're going to see a complete change in how everything works. And again, Tesla's just the beginning. It's every automaker is going to be participating in this new economy, and it really does circle back to this idea of both the autonomous and the non-autonomous future. It's going to be connected. It's going to be intelligent. So that's always going to be a big part of what we invest in. It should get more intelligent and seamless over time.
And I liked how you said like a big focus is just like the Amber test, that like if I was just curious about how my Tesla is doing and the health of it, I could just hit up Amber and just get a test and just diagnose it. And you could be like, hey, there might be this problem that could arise potentially in a few months. Like you guys can see that type of things in the car or what might have issues in the future.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of like predictability and like getting ahead of problems that may arise.
Yeah. And it's funny. I've actually been a user myself, which is really great. My family and I, we were driving down to the X Takeover event, actually, where we met Gally.
Yeah.
And before we left, we got this sort of sinister alert that showed up on our Tesla dashboard. And I was like, oh no, we're not going to be able to drive this car down, right? Like immediately your response is flight or flight, right, as an owner, because let's be honest, like I don't know how to service my car. There's orange cables in it, right? Like I'm not a technician by trade, but you know, I was able to consult, right, with our Amber Diagnostics team, and they were able to just say, yeah, it's, you know, a false positive, right? It'll clear, should be fine, you're good to go. But just in that moment, having someone to talk to and, you know, an expert to be able to consult with, that was really amazing. And I didn't have to go anywhere, right? I literally just texted our team. And that's how amazing it is, that it's fully remote and it just gives you a little bit more peace of mind because, you know, we talk about cars a lot of the time and vehicles as if, you know, they're just moving things from A to B. But the other important thing is that they're moving humans and people that you care about, like your family, from A to B. And so that's important to have that peace of mind, that visibility into that asset. And it's amazing that with technology, you can learn more and be even safer, perhaps, in that vehicle than before.
And what Amber is building is so interesting because it's like a quasi-insurance protection plan kind of thing. Like it's extended warranty, but it's kind of insurance. And we were talking earlier, do you even call it a protection plan? Because, you know, is that the right framing? But that's kind of what it is. And so it's so cool that it's almost like a new category of product that gives owners peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this whole craze around car subscriptions, right? Car subscription, that might have even been the term that was big for a while. And, you know, all these manufacturers are trying different things like, hey, like, you know, if you pay a monthly rate, then you can get Sirius XM or these other services right on your vehicle. I think AmberCare, our ultimate vision of it, is a car subscription in many ways, right? Less extended warranty of this huge bill or upfront cost, but more of a monthly rate or a subscription or a club that you're in where, you know, if you are paying this monthly rate, our sort of thing that we promise you is that we allow you to, again, own with peace of mind. So right now, you know, we cover breakdowns. So if your battery fails or your $5,000 like drive unit, which is the motor in your car, fails, then we cover that. But in the future, our vision is that we would cover anything. So anything that happens to your car, it's a monthly rate, it's fixed. So there's no surprises. And, you know, the true vision is we come to you and even fix that. So you wouldn't even have to be there. That's how seamless we want the experience to be.
And how many times as EV owners, have we tried to call Tesla service or something goes wrong, like you're saying? It's just like having someone to call is so important. When something happens. And so I feel like Amber being that like helper is a really cool vision and opportunity. And, you know, switching gears, I'm curious, like Amber, the startup is so interesting. Like you're based in San Francisco. You're like this technology startup. You know, you just went to almost 50 states or maybe 48 states from 11 states.
47 from 11, yeah.
47 from 11, so almost nationwide expansion of your service. And just, you know, you're only a year or two old as a company, and now you're offering this product. So super cool. And I think even tapping into your background a little more, you worked at Point 72, which I think is cool. Like, you know, the finance nerd in me is like, oh my gosh, that's such a cool, famous firm in Wall Street. And then you think about like Warren Buffett, his Geico thing, owning insurance businesses, float, and how the whole structure is you get capital that you need to manage before you pay out a claim. And that's why these financiers and investors love to own these type of businesses. And then you coming from that finance world and then setting up a business where you're getting float up front and kind of running what is a very Buffett-esque business in some ways. It's kind of like really boring industry and like kind of like not that fun or exciting. It seems like warranty and fixing stuff and kind of, you know, it seems like a nightmare. Like you're the people that when something goes wrong, they call you. Like that's like, you don't want to be that guy, you know, it's a tricky business to be in. Like it's, but there's also like, in some ways, those are the sexiest business models, is those boring businesses that you never think about. And so I think it's just a really fascinating company that you're building here that's kind of like reminds me of these old world ones, but it's also this new type of insurance protection plan. And then I'm just kind of rambling now, but you also have that company that got bought by Allstate that was doing like the phone insurance. So if you think the car is as much a phone as it is a car with the electric vehicle and autonomy, then the business model of the protection plan we've already seen play out in the first proliferation of robots, which is phones. And so now you have the second wave of proliferation of robots, which is electric vehicles. Then you're kind of building that protection plan company for this category, which, you know, at HyperGwap, when we're investing in startups, we think this is one of the biggest trends in the economy right now. Is like, it's not just Tesla, it's going to be a gazillion other types of things that are robots. It's electric boats, it's electric RVs, and it's not just Tesla, it's Rivian, it's every other car. Every car company in the future, every transportation company is building these robot things. Like it's the Coco delivery bot that delivers Chick-fil-A's now. That's also a robot. So we think about the greatest like next boom. Is it the internet? Is it crypto? What is that exponential into the billions trend that is compounding at hundreds % per year? We think it's like hardware robot devices in the wild. And Tesla is leading that. So like you look at the chart of like EV expected sales, it's like, talk about a trend I want to tie myself to.
Yeah.
And that's like, who's tying themselves to that trend? Amber. Because they're like, we're the healthcare, because 5 years, 10 years down the road, after all these sales of devices happen, we're the people who helps maximize value. And then I'm like, well, if people can do that for an iPhone, imagine how much value there is in extending the value of a car. Tesla only makes $5,000 on its car, sells its car maybe $4,000 to $5,000 in profit. So if Amber's charging, you know, Amber, by helping consumers use the vehicle from mile 100,000 to 300,000 or 400,000 or 500,000, could be eventually making hundreds, if not thousands, in gross profit per vehicle per owner. So Amber is actually making a chunk, you know, it's not even that different from how much profit Tesla's making from the car. This is just like the finance nerd in me.
Yeah.
So it's such a cool company that I think you're building here, and obviously I'm interested in it, you know. So I'm kind of curious, like, what's your take on, like, not really the customer side, but the company builder and founder side in you? Like, how excited about what you're doing as a founder, and why did you, like, pick this business model?
Yeah. You know, it's funny that you say, you know, crypto and some of these other really exciting areas, right? Because I was born and raised in the Bay Area. I'm a big Niners fan, so go Niners. But the point there is that, you know, San Francisco and a lot of the Bay Area, right, initially there's this history around gold rushes, right? So you've got 1849 with the actual gold rush. Then you've got, you know, Silicon Valley, which you could sort of argue is a gold rush, right, in many ways. And now you've got AI and machine learning, really exciting times. But at the end of it, if you really think about it, what were the businesses that really came out of those gold rushes that were really sort of iconic, right? So you've got Levi's, for example. They were providing clothes for the miners. You've got, you know, all these bakeries and sourdough, and there's this history of providing food to the miners, right? And you know, that's something that's always been really fascinating to me. Is there's this term of like picks and shovels, and literally like what we're doing is building the picks and shovels for these major waves of innovation, right? Whether it's auto with electric cars, whether it's autonomy, right, with the fleets of software-defined vehicles. At the back of it, there's always going to be businesses that are supporting that growth. And a lot of the time, those businesses do become bigger than the actual movement itself. And so for Amber, that was really the ethos that I was always really excited about, is that, you know, there's this huge wave of innovation in all these places, but at the end of the day, people need to get their cars fixed, right? And the cars need to be maintained. Preferably they're on the road for even longer, right? Because there's a sustainability angle to that where I completely get it, right? There's a big narrative out there that says electric cars, you know, they're hard to fix, right? Maybe they're not meant to last, right? They're just sort of a fad. And the reality is, if we don't have the picks and shovels, that's probably the case. Same thing for autonomy, right? Mm-hmm. Really exciting, big vision. But imagine if parts of that autonomous fleet break, and there's not a really great way for those things to be maintained and for people to get service, then you're just going to have all these cars out of service and people aren't going to be able to order, right, a robo-taxi. So that's what's exciting, is that we're just riding this wave, right, of growth alongside innovation, and we're really close to the customer, and we're really close to sort of like the real world problems. That's what's really exciting about Amber and why I decided to start this company in the first place.
Yeah. And what's you're doing Teslas now, extended warranty.
Yeah.
And talk to us a little bit about the vision, so that this is your MVP, let's call it, of an extended warranty offering, which is more flexible than Tesla's. And so you're finding a lot of success with that. You're doing it like Tesla, no marketing, but you got customers, you're out there, which is not easy for a warranty kind of brand that you should trust, but you're a startup, so you got to build that trust. But you're a startup, that catch-22, not easy. But how are you going to expand your product lineup? Where does this go? How does this get more exciting than just extended warranty play? Like, you clearly have a big vision here. So how do you build the building blocks out for other kind of products and services?
Yeah, for sure. So there are two sort of areas that we really want to invest in as we continue to grow the business. So one is we'd love to be able to cover all parts of the car, right? So today, Amber Care covers breakdowns of those major components. We'd love to be able to cover the maintenance as well, right? So it's all in one package. You don't have to worry of whether it's covered or not, which is a huge thing that people are always worrying about when they think about extended warranty, right? So that's an area that we think that we could expand into. The second is that we want to have an end-to-end view of this customer experience. So not just protection, but also the service delivery itself. So whether it's, again, having a footprint of repair centers or areas that are enabling the existing repair footprint and operators, we think that we can play a really big role in being a facilitator between that customer, whether it's a personal owner or fleet owner, and the actual service provider. So in the future, if something breaks, then we would also make sure that your car is fixed. So those are at least like two areas that we're really excited about. Where this all goes, though, is like we're thinking backwards, right, from the future. Whereas, again, like we were talking about cyber taxis, like robo taxis, and also, the smarter, intelligent fleet. And we think that we have a really good place to play with all of these pieces put together, right? Being able to remotely monitor the car, protect it, and control costs at a fixed rate that's accessible and affordable, and then deliver service in a seamless manner. If we rinse and repeat that and provide really great customer service, it shouldn't just be applicable to a couple segments of the market today, but really the entire sort of automotive future is where we think Amber can really play.
And in some ways, I'm always joking because I'm like, maybe you should be a robo-taxi company because you're going to have such a valuable stack of that robo-taxi supply chain, which is like refurbishing, getting the uptime going, making sure it works, efficient way to fix it. That's what Amber's doing, is the crux of this robo-taxi economy. And I have so many thoughts. I'm curious if we could pick your brain on the future of that, because Waymo, it blew us away when we did our ride in the Waymo. It was absolutely incredible. Just gonna remember it forever. They're really scaling it. Like, a lot of people are doing the Waymo. It's gotten beyond tech nerds. You talk to people, they're like, have you tried the Waymo? Did you see the Waymo? Like, I did. It was crazy. Like, it's gone into the zeitgeist. It's having a ChatGPT IRL moment. And now Tesla's gonna come out with some sort of play there. And so I think it's really interesting to think about, do you even want to buy cars in the future? Like, that's what I keep going to with Rivian's R2 coming out in 2026. I'm like, Waymo's going to be cheaper and better and everywhere by then. Uber's going to be trying to compete by then. Tesla's going to be out with their thing by then. Like, the chance of me buying a car, it seems like that whole concept is just the fact that there's this $30,000 asset that I only want to use a little bit of the time, but I have to pay the whole $30,000 for it, is getting thrown on its head. So I think that's even more than the technology change is the asset ownership change. Mm-hmm. We've never had that change where it's everyone's always owned the car no matter what technology it's been. But now we have the new thing where you don't own the car, you pay to use the car. And that I see as having vast implications in a lot of ways that are kind of underestimated because of how quickly it could happen, because it's like 0.001% of miles now, but it could go up really, really quick. So I'm curious, like, I don't know, both you guys, like what's the predictions here with what happens? Like, what's Tesla going to unveil? Is Waymo going to step on the gas and go crazy with this and expand? Like, would love to hear some predictions about the self-driving future.
And just building on that real quick, like one thing I like ask Gally a lot about is Tesla just going to own the full stack of the fleet and not let anyone become a fleet operator? Or are they gonna, do you see like a world where, you know, there's people that buy a bunch of Teslas and they operate as like fleet operators, and there's going to be all these fleet operators that you do like B2B deals with? I'm just curious how you think about that. Or like, is Waymo going to start selling their Waymos in bulk to people who want to then operate and deal with the maintenance and stuff? Because eventually like that becomes like a big cost center for the Waymo and Tesla, is like the maintenance and like the logistics and I mean, maybe they can solve the charging and stuff like that, and it can just go over something and charge itself without a human. But like, there's a lot of like operations that like a fleet operator needs to deal with.
Yeah. All of those things lead me to think that it's really going to be the case where Tesla's not going to be the only fleet operator. That's at least the future that I see. Services, operations, they're really hard, right? I think manufacturing vehicles is difficult as is, and building the software and being able to put all it together, that's a big feat. And you know, I think the operating is its own challenge. So I do see that as to be the future, and I think there are some parallels in what's happening right now with Tesla and its service arm already, right? Which is that, you know, Tesla of course has committed to providing service for its owners, but frankly, the demand for service does not match the supply, right? Tesla's sort of overwhelmed. And so if we just use that one example of Tesla saying, hey, we're going to go and enable a third-party network and sort of foster this ecosystem, has to be our way, right? It has to be in a way that's embracing this sort of new age future of digital and transparent service. But I think the fleet side is going to go the same way. I do think that they will, you know, work with other fleet operators to sell the vehicles or perhaps lease them, and that fleet operator will have to figure out all the messy stuff, which is keeping that fleet up.
I think you're onto something, Baker, and shout out to Farzad, because he gave me this idea when we had a podcast of like the announcement will be like they'll show off all these different companies tricking out the robotaxi, and Tesla's Boeing. They sell it. Everyone else is the airliner. They operate it. They deal with it. They clean it. They pay Amber to do somebody like Amber to do the warranty on it. Yeah. And that kind of blew my mind, because it's very opposite Apple owning the stack. Every tech company is vertically integrated. They own everything, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was just like a whoa. And then I was like, well, that's how Boeing does it. Like, it's not that crazy. So, I don't know. That kind of blew my mind when I heard about that. So I just wanted to throw out that kind of idea of, is it Tesla owning everything? I'm way more in the camp of it looks something like this Boeing model, where they kind of license it out and let people build apps on top of it. One of it, you know, maybe it's like there's a nail salon and you can get your nails done. One is just a super comfy massage chair and you just like full relax mode. And that's what they specialize in, and they have the best massage chair technology. Yeah. And the other one is, you know, it's like a sports. It's like you need to watch the game. Like, yeah, I got to get somewhere, but like, I need the games
Buffalo
on.
Wild Wings
like,
fleet sounds pretty interesting.
Dude, and you got wings and like,
wow.
Like now, like partnership with Dude Wipes to clean up. Like, dude,
it's interesting there.
Yeah, like that's messy, like higher maintenance, you know.
Right.
But
it's interesting.
I love the creativity of this, you know, because when you hear Elon on the conference call and he's like, a mini lounge that's anywhere. That's our biggest new product. And I never thought Tesla would get into the lounge business. So it's like, you know, once you unlock the attention spent and human bandwidth spent on it sucks I have to drive, and now I'm happy and I got to relax and do whatever I want in this space. That's why it was so amazing when Aiden and I were in the Waymo. We're not looking at the guy driving being like, is he going to mess up? Who's this weird guy that I'm with who I've never met that the Uber app put me with, and like his car's kind of messy. Like he had a huge dent on the side of his car, so like I don't even think he's good at driving. So when he braked quick, I had to look because I'm stressed because I think he might crash. Like all that's gone. and I'm chilling and I'm kicking back and it's a lounge. And that it goes from a place you don't want to spend time to a place you want to spend time. And that's a big paradigm shift in like the whole economy that's going to happen. And so that's where like the creativity and fun of what you get to do with these pods is like so cool. And you like that Waymo experience, you know, it's going to be like funny that it looked like a car, you know, because it could look like anything. But
and I think like, how does this like impact the amount of time that humans spend like in transportation? You know, like when you can go anywhere and you don't have to be the one driving, like maybe you're going to be on the road more. So the miles used by like humans on a like day-to-day basis is going to increase dramatically when you don't need to have a driver. And because of that, like things like Amber and the maintenance of it's going to matter so much more. Because we're going to have so many more miles on the road per day. There's going to be so many more robo-taxis around.
For sure.
And they have a platform of different like experiences when you're in the robo-taxi. There's just going to be a lot. We're going to spend a lot more time in our robo-taxis than we did in cars to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the two things I do believe to be the future and why we're so well positioned at Amber to be able to be a great participant in this future is that one, whether it's Tesla or a fleet operator, particularly if it's Tesla that is looking to a third party, I think rightfully so. They've always had really high bar or set a really high bar for the third parties that they work with, right? They don't just work with anyone out there for example, administering Tesla insurance, which is a widely popular insurance offering.
That's a good example.
Right?
A lot of Tesla people don't know. It's like Tesla's doing insurance, but you were the one who told me maybe it's not really them kind of.
There's a lot of work that's underneath that, you know, Tesla may not be specialized in, right? For example, handling claims, adjudicating them, making sure that they're doing the accounting, which is, you know, in itself a pretty big challenge. So I do think that the quality of the third party is going to matter a lot. And so that's why we think every day, hey, how do we develop the right operations and systems to do the maintenance and repair and what we're good at really, really well, right? And position ourselves to be sort of that party and raise our hands when Tesla or these fleet operators volunteer or looking for someone. The second thing is that I do think that the connectivity piece is going to be so important, right? There are all these businesses out there that do maintenance and repair. You know, I'm sure there are companies that do cleaning of cars, and there's going to be so many new industries. But at the end of the day, these service providers are going to have to adopt, right? This idea that data is going to be driving when their services are needed, perhaps how they're priced, and how they're executed, right? Because that's what the consumer is going to demand, right? They're going to demand that all of that is digital, that it feels seamless. And so for new vendors or third parties, they're going to have to live within that world and be natively themselves sort of software defined, which will be really interesting.
Or I guess right now Amber does Teslas, and that's your bread and butter.
Yep.
So maybe you could tell us which Teslas that you service, and then I read the TechCrunch article. It sounds like you're coming out with Rivian and a few other companies. Could you tell us which vehicles that Amber is working with right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently we cover or provide Amber Care coverage options for Tesla models S, X3, and Y. We don't cover the Cybertruck quite yet. It's something that we'll take a look at as it ages. It's not really
it's brand new
timing, exactly. And, you know, I think we would love to expand anywhere where the manufacturer is really thinking about software first, right, for their asset.
And like, can you do it? I guess is what I'm boiling down to. Like, you do Teslas, that's great. So I'm sure the Cybertruck comes out, but like, can you do Rivian?
Yeah.
And you think you'll be able to expand to that and then do these other OEMs?
Yeah, certainly.
That are like the technology's transferable, I guess.
Absolutely. So every manufacturer, right, at the core hardware level, they have sensors in all these cars, right? They built it in very similar ways as Tesla because part of it was that they wanted to be in place for autonomy, right? Whether it's GM or Hyundai and Kia, they've had their own partnerships with companies that are trying to build autonomous stacks on top of the vehicles. So the hardware is all there. What's limiting us to some degree in terms of scaling really effectively to these other brands is the availability to access this data remote. So, you know, Rivian, for example, is starting to develop, right, the tool set very similar to Tesla to allow third-party developers to be able to interact with the cars, pull data. So that's one area that we know, right, we want to expand into. And then
They're
another...
following the Tesla playbook.
Yeah, exactly.
And basically opening up the world for Ambers
sure.
to come in.
And then we do think that automakers like Hyundai and Kia, again, like more like traditionally very close to electronics manufacturers, they'll also be ones that sort of raise their hand and say, hey, like we'll have all of this available remote. We can still do all of what we do at Amber today with these other vehicles if we sort of hardwired into the car and did that manually. But, you know, our vision is remote seamless, right? So the more the company leans into that, or the make leans into that, you know, we'll be able to get to them much faster at faster scale.
And it's so cool because when you say sensors, it's like, well, where else is this going? That's that proliferation we were just talking about of these robotic devices. Like where, you know, I keep thinking of the Optimus bot. That's got to be such a proliferation of sensors and technology, and, you know, maybe the next great electric, not vehicle, but whatever, you know, hardware product. So,
yeah.
You know, Johnny Ives teaming up with ChatGPT on something, they say. Who knows what that's going to be? Probably a robot, you know? Because when we first met, I had this funny like thing. I was like, you know what would be crazy commercial for Amber is if you had like these two kids and the year's like 2100 and they're like in some junkyard and they like find this like C3PO thing and they like dust it off and they like plug in some sort of chip that's like the Amber chip to diagnose whether it has any juice, and it like lights up and it's like, oh my gosh, like 12% battery, like there's a couple good parts, and then they like, oh my gosh, they can make the robot out of it. And it's like such a cool like vision. Like in this Star Wars future, you see Amber being as relevant than ever, more relevant than ever. It's kind of like your SOS for your spaceship. So I'm kind of curious of like how sci-fi is it, or how realistic is it that Tesla Optimus and Figure robots and these proliferation of robots, like as we try and maximize life for them, like Amber could work for those too. Like, is that a fantasy, or are you thinking like, wait, like, no, our technology stack is going to be not only work for those, but provide value for those customers?
Yeah. It's funny. I was laughing because in 2050, I'm just envisioning the meme of like, I'm calling you about your extended warranty for your Optimus robot. Because that would just be like crushing if that's still, you know, the meme that's going around. But I mean, without joking, all jokes aside, it's yeah, I mean, robots, right, are going to be more similar to EVs than gas cars, right? So they'll have a battery, most likely. They'll have a computer. They'll have actuators that are, you know, helping move the different limbs and allowing it to have motor control, right, whatever the task is going to be. And they're going to have sensors, right? So in many ways, like an EV is sort of like a beta or V1 version of, you know, a robot that's walking around. So, you know, whether it's a robot like that is, you know, in a manufacturing use case, or a water taxi, or any of these other sort of electric assets out there, they're going to be software defined. They're going to have sensors. They're going to have data coming off of them, and they're all going to need to be repaired and maintained. So Amber is, you know, right now just in the electric car world, but we really do see it expanding out to any sort of software defined asset for us to have an aftermarket platform for those types of assets.
It's super cool. And I'm curious, Aiden, you spent some time thinking about, you know, this proliferation. It's like, well, the car is going electric is one thing, but like what kind of new assets, software defined assets will get created? Like, you know, is it the humanoid, the water taxi? You know, we're investors in Navier, the electric boat company. Like, that's such a cool version of it. And that's like what you're saying. It's like an electric vehicle kind of, like it's all software defined. So It seems like there's going to be a tidal wave of those kind of devices.
Yeah, it seems like so many things were designed in the industrial mechanical age, and we're now just getting to like the beginning of this like software eating the world, electrification, and we're still like at the very beginning of like what's going to be like a proliferation of robots. And with all those robots all around our society, you know, from the healthcare to education to the things transporting us from like the air to the sea to land, like everything's going to be electric and software defined. And you can't have those things breaking down. You can't have those things causing, safety issues or problems in the field. And that's where Amber is playing like a critical, maintenance role in that future. Instead of having humans, it's all software enabled. And that's how the future should be with all these things that are built with software in mind from the beginning. So it seems like Amber's could be like critical infrastructure if you can get this first robot right with Teslas.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Robot healthcare with Amber. I mean, there you go. That was an awesome way to end it. And maybe, Joe, you could tell the people, where to find Amber, and maybe open source any ideas from the community of, I don't know, the hyperchangers are scheming. Like, who knows what kind of ideas this could go. I was always like, or I was telling Joe, like, something to change my air filter, or something's wrong with my windshield wiper fluid. Like, these kind of tiny annoying things that are like a lot less scary than EV warranty service. I would love to have like a EV kind of like tooth fairy come fix every once in a while. And I don't know, that's my like moonshot for Amber. And so I'm curious what the other people have. But yeah, is there anything we should sign off on, or, people should hit you up, Amber.get Amber?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our website is at getamber.com. You can reach us at hello@getamber.com, or reply on the HyperChange channel and video. Pretty approachable. We're small and quickly growing startups, so there's not like layers of bureaucracy to this.
Love
We're
it.
always looking for new ideas. I love the idea of the cabin air filters. We could probably do some additional maintenance as well. Things are changing, right? Even just a couple years ago, I didn't think it was possible for someone to come out and do all of these fixes right in your driveway. So, hopefully we can find a driveway near you to be able to bring, an Amber Cybertruck or another like service vehicle and do those fixes. So that'd be a really cool idea. Let's do that collab.
Yeah, the yellow Amber Cybertruck to help to SOS you. I mean,
It's a good vibe.
we're all here for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much to everyone tuning in. Definitely check out Amber. We appreciate you joining the Scheme Sesh. I feel like it's awesome to, hear about electrification, autonomy, so much happening. We may have to touch base after 1010 because that's going to be crazy. So yeah, let us know what you think below, and signing off. See y'all next time.